Well, welcome everybody. This is Earl Small Segment Shop. Now I've started this video 2 times already. I'm starting it again. First 2 times not really to my satisfaction. So I'm going to try it again. It's on open segments. So why in the world would anyone want to do open segments? And they're just too hard and time consuming. Well, first of all, I've had much better luck with open segments than I've had with solid segments or even solid turning. I've won many more awards with open segments. In the North Carolina Woodworking Showcase, which has all kinds of woodworking, beautiful pieces. I took Best of Show one year. Now, I think they only had that showcase 4 years. And the first year I missed it. I only entered it 2 years. Why I never entered it the last year, I can't remember. But the first year I entered it, I took Best of Show with an open segment of turning. And there were a lot of turnings in it. There were a lot of stuff in it. Beautiful inlay work, grandfather clocks, furniture, everything you can think of. The second year I entered it, another segmented turner took Best of Show with a solid segment turning, actually, yeah. So it ain't all just open segment. But that year I took first, second, and third place in wood turning with open segment turnings. And the year after that, which I believe was the last year it ran, they made segment turning a separate category. Anyway, I've had many awards, all within, 100-mile radius, 200-mile radius. And I live in a bad area, so. National Fine Arts Juror Contest I've entered. One year I won an award with a solid segment turning. All the rest of the times I've entered, I've won with open segment turning. So I've had a lot better luck with open segment turnings. Every year I've entered, I've won something. I've got one of the prizes. Last year I entered an open segment turning and I got a prize. I'm not entering it anymore. I'm getting too old for that, but I'm going to enter a local show this year. Anyway, like I said, I've had a lot better luck with open segment turnings. Now, you say, well, they're just too hard and too time consuming. Actually, they're easier than solid segment turning. You don't believe that, huh? Well, I'll show that later. And I can make one just about as quick. Now, making them on the lathe is what makes them easier and quicker. Making them on the lathe actually ensures that you get tight joints. And of course, segmented turnings, tight joints, is what you want. What you really need is tight joints. It's all the difference between a good turning and a mediocre turning. When I first started, I thought, how in the world am I going to do open segment turning? I wanted to do an open segment turning, but they were all done off the lathe at that time. I thought, well, maybe I can do it on the lathe. I thought about it, and I come up with a way to do it on the lathe. Yes, I am the one that come up with a way to do it on the lathe. When I first started, I had to make my own equipment to do it. It takes 2 pieces of equipment. It takes an index wheel, and it takes a gluing platform. Well, I made my own and made many, many, many turnings for years that way, award-winning turnings. And then I finally found a manufacturer that made an index wheel I could use. Most index wheels were 24 indexes. but I found one I could actually use. It's a beautiful index wheel. And I talked to the manufacturer that made it and told him what I wanted, what I was using it for. And I bought one of the index wheels he had at the time. After talking to him, I believe he makes a better model now. And after talking with him for a while, I sent him a sample of the universal gluing platform I come up with, which he makes now. And no, I get no benefits from any of his sales. But so if you want to make open segment turnings, you can make your own equipment real easy. It's no problem at all. Or you can buy ready-made equipment. It is of the highest quality. So let's get on with the next part of this video. I just did a video on segments and segment rings. That's solid segment rings. Now I want to do a video on open segments. Basically, open segments are actually easier to do than solid segments. I know you can say, how in the world can that possibly be? But they are. I'll explain that. I've have a few things going at once, too many things at one time. Rebuilt my router table. I got the world's weirdest router table. Homemade. I made it big enough so I could put some big pieces on it. Made it solid. Got a huge fence on it. It's hollow inside with a dust collector on the back. But I had a little piece on the front so I could put a small router up there, home router with a lift, so I could do small work right there at the front. So I got a router table with 2 routers on it now. And I just finished working on my riding mower. My push mower went kaput, so I got to work on that. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a bunch of stock. I'm not only going to do a video on open segments, but at the same time, I'm going to make an open segment turning. What I'm going to make is what I call a 40 wood turning. It may be 35 woods in actuality, it may be 50, but I always call it a 40 wood turning. Make stock from all the woods I can find. And I'm going to use 1/2 inch high segments. I got a lot of 1/2 inch high stock. Basically, these are cut right off the edge of a board. Just cut them right off the edge. So these would be the edge of a board like that. Cut right off. Of course, this wood ain't cut from that board, but this actually wenge here. And this one's sycamore here. So I'm going to use that and make an open segment turning. For the base, I'm going to make a floating base. The rings for the floating base, the bottom ring, I'm going to make it from different woods. I'm going to make it all the harder woods. I'm not going to use any of the softer woods in the bottom ring. The cap ring, I'll make it with mostly different woods. There'll probably be some of the woods be the same. But I'm going to make a 24 segments per ring, so I'll have 24 different woods on both rings. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about what an open segment is. This represents a closed segment, very exaggerated. And this would represent an open segment, also exaggerated. An open segment is commonly 70% the cut length, which is this length, of a closed segment. So if I got a ring that requires 1 inch cut length for a solid segment, an open segment of the same diameter would be 0.7 inches cut length. Other than that, it's the same. The height is determined by the height of the ring you want, and the width is determined again by the thickness of the wall and the angle, just like the solid segments. I went through it on the solid segments. So, an open segment ring, 70% is wood, 30% is air. 70% wood, 30% air, all the way around. And there's 2 ways of making it. One way, people do it off the lathe. Well, off the lathe, you use gravity to hold the segments on. You stick them on. You got an indexing system on the bottom. But I developed a way to do it on the lathe. And you require 2 things: an index wheel and a gluing platform. Gluing them on the lathe, you glue them right up against you have to have a good tight joint, otherwise they'll fall off. So gluing them on the lathe, I sand it flat. All the segments are cut. You have to have at least 1 flat, smooth surface to be glued on. Now, all the stock has to be the same height. Now, you can run a board across the joiner and get a surface, and then rip them all on the table saw, get them all the same height. That will give you 1 gluing surface. Or you can run them through a drum sander. You can run them through a planer. But you need them all the same height, all the same thickness. And you need 1 gluing surface. Now, if you got 2 good gluing surfaces, that's great. You got to have at least 1. If I got a piece that's got 1 good gluing surface, but the other side was ripped on a table saw, I'd take the side that don't have the good gluing surface and I'd put a mark on it with my wax markers. That way I know which side to glue on. So all you need is 1. If you have 2, that's good. Next, I'm going to get into the indexing and the gluing platform. So the 2 things you need to do it on the lathe is a gluing platform, hold the segments in place, and an index wheel to index them. Now, when I first come up with this idea, I made my own index wheels, just hardboard and printouts of whatever I wanted. This is 36 indexes. There's 40 indexes. There's 32. There's 64 index wheel. All homemade, and I made many award-winning turnings with these. Let's see this. I don't know if you can see it or not. Yeah. I'll get a still picture of that. So that's how I indexed them. And then I've been looking for a commercial index wheel. I'd like to have a good commercial one. Only thing I could find was wheels with 24 indexes. Then I found a manufacturer that made an excellent index wheel. The outer ring had 192 indexes, which means I could make segment turnings for 96 segments per ring, 48, 24, 32, 16, just by dividing that one ring down. But he had other rings give more options. So I ordered one, and I got one on my lathe now. When I got not the latest model, but I've been using it. It's got plenty of options on it. This is what they look like. Heavy steel. Excellent, excellent heavy steel rings. This is an older model. And the big rings, he makes two sizes. The big one has the 192 index ring on it. The others don't have that outside ring. The man that makes this, or the company that makes this, is Chef Ware Kits. And I quit making my own after I found out. It's an excellent, excellent indexing wheel. The other thing you need is a platform. Well, when I first started, I made a platform, nothing but a box, sitting on a base. The box sits off to one side. It sits on the lathe. Got a guide on the bottom, and got a simple clamp. Just a simple clamp to hold it on. I got some lead weights to balance it. The box sits to one side, and the height of the box comes up right up to the middle of the spindle. Then it's got a piece of aluminum angle on it. It's also the same height, right at the middle of the spindle. And then I got a mark right at the middle of the spindle this way. So it sticks out from the middle of the spindle out. I got a 20-inch lathe, so this one sticks out about 12 inches. Very simple, just a box. This one works good. I made many, many, many turnings with this. But the company that makes the index wheel wanted to know what I'm doing with the index wheel, because they were originally made for people that do that painting, basket weave illusion stuff. So I told him, so I needed a gluing platform that could fit any lathe, and I come up with this. This is just a flat board, got the same aluminum angle on the edge, but it's got a rod that's right in the middle, right in the middle of the top edge. And it fits on the drill chuck and the tailstock. The bottom, it's got a piece of wood about center. It sits on a piece of round stock. Got a stop on it. It sits on there. It works fine, works great. Now, I've got a video on how to make one of these, but I sent a pattern of one to Chef Ware Kits, and he came up with a commercial version, a beautiful commercial version, well made. I got the drill chuck already on it. I keep it on it because I use this a lot. Got the same piece in the middle. It's got a ruler on it. It works good. It fits any lathe. And that's, again, from Chef Ware Kits. I sent him the I sent him a model of it, and he copied it and made this. And this is excellent. So you can get a commercial one, or you can make a homemade one. Said I got a video on how to make this. You can make a box. That works good. You can buy an index wheel. Now his new index wheel, it's got indexes that allow you to make segment turnings. 12 segments per ring, 14 segments per ring, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 28, 30, 32, 36, 44, 48, 60, 72, and 96. You wonder, well, why do I need so many? Well, when I make a pattern, if I have a pattern that's 4 segments across, I repeat it. I don't just make one 4-segment across, I repeat it around the turning. So I could use 16 segments per ring, or I could use 20 segments per ring, or 24. If I have a pattern that's 6 segments across, then I'm going to have to use 24 segments per ring, or I could use 30 segments per ring, or 36 segments per ring. I don't think I have an index for 30. Yeah, I got an index for 30, or for 36. If I have one that's 8 segments across, I can use 24. I can use 32. So that's the reason why I have so many. So that plenty of options on index wheel. Homemade index wheels work good. Homemade universal gluing platforms work good. A box, just a box with a guide on the bottom and a clamp, works great, but it's just for one lathe. This is built just for this lathe. It works super. I made a lot of good turnings with this. So I'm going to get still pictures of all of this. And like I said, I got videos on how to make them, how to make index rings, how to make a universal gluing platform and a box. I think I got one just on making the box. I'm not sure about that. So if you want to make a gluing platform, it's just dedicated to one lathe. You can make a box like I showed you. Very easy to do. Mine's heavy. It's real heavy because I used MDF, pretty thick stuff. But you can use anything you got in the shop you want to use. Very easy, but it's only good for one lathe. Now, the universal gluing platforms. Simple board, piece of aluminum angle on the edge, flush with the top, of course. This one's still got the chuck hook to it. A bar, the actual diameter don't really make much difference as long as you put a chuck on it. So that the center of the bar is even with the top of the platform. What I did is glued 2 pieces together and I drilled right through the joint for this one. Again, piece of aluminum angle on the front. This is just screwed on. And a piece glued down the middle. And it don't have to be exact center, but it needs to be close. This is the homemade one. This needs to be straight across. Of course, the well-made commercial one, they got a bigger piece, but it makes no difference. And the reason for the piece is so you don't have to level it all the time. When you put it in the tailstock, this is all upside down. You put the rod in your banjo, you can bring this up against it. So you can return it to the same position every time. Make no difference if it's in the front or in the back or in the middle. As long as it's against that. That's so you don't have to level it with a level. And all you need to do is just get it eyeball level. That's so you can set segments on it, they don't fall off. If it's at a crazy angle, they'll fall off. But if it's eyeball level, it's all you need. This has got a stop collar on it, of course, so you can return it to the same spot every time. So one of these is easy to build. I got a video on it. Or you can get the commercial version. The same people that make the index wheel. A good, thick, solid steel index wheel. It is excellent. And that is made by Chef Wear Kits. I'm going to leave it up here. And no, I don't get any benefit when he sells them. I get no benefits at all. Okay, we know what we need to make open segment turning on the lathe. The reason we do it on the lathe, it's quicker, it's easier, and we're absolutely assured of having tight joints. When you do it off the lathe, you use gravity to hold them on, and you have no assurance that the joints are tight. On the lathe, gravity's trying to pull them off. Yes, I've had some fall off. If they're not super flat, they can fall off. What I do is I just wipe the glue off, turn them over, and glue them back on. Or I might have to even make a new one. So, you ask, how is it possible that open segments are easier than solid segments? Well, that's easy. You cut segments for a solid segment, you have to glue them into a ring with tight joints. So you either have to use half ring glue up, which takes time, and you got to sand the ends, possibly get an oval shaped ring, or you can do it a single way. You got to clamp them, dry clamp them, then you got to glue them up. You got to let them set for 15 minutes. Then you got to flatten them. One side, or both sides if you stack them up. Then you got to glue them on, make sure the glue joints between rings is flat. The angles when you cut them have got to be precise. Open segments, on the other hand, if your angle's off a little bit when you cut them, you'll never know it. Can't be off a whole lot, but they don't have to be precise like solid segments. Gluing them on, you're gluing them on a sanded flat surface. You got a flat surface on the segments to glue. If they don't fall off, you know it's a tight joint. You say, well, it takes too long to do them on. No. If you use tight bound quick and thick, you need a clamp time of 5 seconds to glue them on. On the other hand, you use tight bound 1, 2, or 3. It takes about 10 seconds to glue them on, clamp time. Then after 15 minutes, you can sand them. Now, you got a flat surface you're gluing them on. They're all the same thickness, all been put through the drum sander at the same time. You think, well, they're the same thickness and you're gluing them on a flat surface. Top's already got to be flat. Well, it ain't. Why is that? Well, it's wood. I'll show that later. So yeah, they're much easier than solid segments. You don't have to get all those tight joints. You just glue them on. So, first thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to make a floating bottom for it. Now I'm going to make a turning, like I said, what I call a 40 wood turning. I've got more than 40 woods here. Now if I'm going to make a solid segment or an open segment, either one, I need a base. The base is the same. Solid base, floating bottom, whatever. It's the same either way, so there's no difference there. Now, when you cut the stock, you have to have at least one good smooth glue surface. You can run it across the jointer. You can run them through the planer and get two good glue surfaces. And you say you can run it across the jointer and then rip it on the table saw. Jointer will give you one good glue surface. I run them through the drum sander, of course. I got a drum sander. So I got two good glue surfaces on all of them. They're all exactly the same height. Take a picture with a ruler laid across them. You can see they're all exactly the same height. So when I glue them on the flat surface, they're all going to be exactly the same. Normally, when I get a simple pattern like I'm going to do today, I just rip them off the edge of the board like this. Of course, this one didn't come off this board. Rip them off the edge. Except the ones that's got a pattern that I want to show on the edge, which will be what's showing on the turning, like sycamore or snakewood, something like that. I got to cut it so the pattern will show right. But right now, I've got well over 50 different woods cut and ready to cut segments. So again, cutting segments, it takes the same time whether they're open segments or closed segments. So I am going to pick 24 segments or 24 woods and cut segments. And now, if you glue them into a ring, you have to, like I said, either use half ring glue up, or you've got to dry clamp them and then glue them, let them dry and flatten them. Put them on an open segment, you say, well, that'll take longer. No, it don't. Actually, clamp time to 5 seconds and move on to the next one. So the time it takes me to glue a ring on is about the same time it would take to make a solid segment ring and flatten it. So I'm going to cut some segments, then we're going to glue some on. I'm going to make a very simple turning. I'm going to use my favorite shape. I'm going to make it 5 open segment rings high. I'm not going to bother drawing it out. I made it enough times to know. The base right now measures 7¼ inches. So the first ring I'm going to put on is going to be 7½ inch. So 7½ inch, 24 open segments. I'm going to cut them at 0.6912. I cut them at 0.7 at an angle of 525. So I cut 24. Actually, I cut, I think, 26. Give me some choice. because I don't want to put one on top of whatever below. It's the same thing. Like if I got a maple, I don't want to put a maple on top of it. I want to put it somewhere else. So I'll be able to pick and choose which ones I glue on. I'm going to use the commercial index wheel. Very, very good index wheel. Heavy duty steel, precision holes cut in. I'm going to use the 48 index ring. I'm going to use, got every other one marked. So I'm going to use marked ones for the first ring and unmarked for the second, or vice versa. I don't know which one I'll use first yet. I'm also going to use the commercial gluing platform. So I set the stop block for 3 3/4 inches from the center. That'll give me a 7.5 inch diameter ring. I'm going to go ahead, set them up. I'm going to set the index wheel so the open segments fall right on the joint with the ring below it. So I'm going to go ahead and set it up. I'll get some still pictures of the setup. I got it set up now. I'm actually using the unmarked indexes. I got this post with a stop collar on it. I got it set right next to the center. The strip that runs along the center on the bottom, so I can put it back the same place. I got pictures of it set up, so I'm ready to start gluing. Now, glue these on because they're perfectly flat. And I sanded the bottom perfectly flat. I'll use tight bound quick and thick. It takes 5 seconds clamp time to glue them on. Put a light layer of glue, put it on, hold it for 5 seconds, go to the next one. So the actual time it'll take me to glue that ring on is just about the same time it would take to glue up a solid ring. And I'm not even going to have to, well, I'm going to have to quickly sand the top to make sure it's flat. Now it should be flat because all of them are the same thickness. So all these are exactly the same height. I'm gluing it on a perfectly flat surface. So it should be perfectly flat, but it won't be. I'll show that after I get it glued on. And that's one reason why when you do it on a lathe, you get perfect tight joints. So I'm going to go ahead now, set up the camera, and start gluing them on. Okay, I'm all ready to glue them on. A light layer of glue, very light layer of glue. Get it down here now. Okay. Very light layer of glue. I don't get enough squeeze out to even worry about. Nobody's ever even seen a squeeze out, so no need to even think about cleaning it up. 5 second clamp time. So this actually goes on faster than what you would think. But by the time it would take me to make a solid ring, I can glue these on. Again, 5 seconds. Let's do one more just for grins. 5 seconds. They go on really fast. So it's a lot faster than you would think. No time at all. Of course, then we got to let them set for 15 minutes before we can work them. But by the time I get the next set of segments cut, they'll be ready to sand flat and glue on the next ones. I'm going to go ahead and finish putting them all on. First row is glued on. That went pretty fast. Like I said, about as long as it would take me to glue up a solid segment ring and sand it flat. Now, I'll cut the second ring, segments for the second ring. By the time I get them cut, this will be ready to chalk and just sand it flat. That just takes a minute. So, second ring, I'm going to make it 8-inch diameter, which means I've got a cut length of 0.7372. 0.738 maybe. Okay, 0.737, close as I can get it. Close enough. I'm going to set it up. I'm going to cut 24 more. Actually, I'll probably cut a couple extra. I'm going to try to mix in some different woods. I got 24 more segments cut for an 8-inch ring. So this is set long enough. I'm sure it's been over 15 minutes. That's all it takes. I'm going to sand it now. It was glued onto a perfectly sanded flat ring on the base. These are all exactly the same thickness because they were all run through the drum sander at the same setting, most of them at the same time. So I should just be able to touch it with the sandpaper and all the chalk will be gone. I got a chalk now, each one of them chalk. But that ain't going to happen. There's going to be one or two that are going to be smaller than the rest. Why? Only thing I can say is it's wood. So I sanded them till all the chalk's gone. They're perfectly flat. And that ensures that the next ring, when it glues on, will get perfectly solid joints. Joints will be perfectly tight. If you're doing it off the lathe, I don't know, do you put it back on the lathe and sand it, or do you just assume that it's flat and glue the next ring up? I have no idea. I've only seen a couple of pieces that were built off the lathe. And to tell you the truth, the ones I seen, I don't mean everybody, just the ones I seen, didn't impress me that much. Now, of course, some people do better work than others, and I'm sure there's some of them that are a lot better than what I see. But I'm going to go ahead and sand this. I'm going to sand it a little bit, and I'm going to take it away and show that there's still chalk on some of the pieces. Then I'm going to finish sanding it. Okay, I'm going to sand it a little bit at first. You see, the chalk's gone on a lot of them, and the chalk's still there on a lot of them, which means there's just a little bit of difference. It ain't very much, but it's enough so that it ain't perfectly flat. And your next row of segments wouldn't glue on absolutely good. So we'll sand it a little more. Normally I'd run the dust collector down. Still got a little bit more. It's set up now, ready to glue the second ring on. The gluing platform sitting on the post. Post is up against a strip in the middle. Same as it was before, so it's at the same angle. Is it perfectly flat? No, not perfectly flat. It's just flat enough so I set segments on it that won't fall off. Eyeball flat. But it's exactly the same angle as it was before. That's what's important. If I move the post out, the angle will drop. If I move the post in, the angle will go up. It's just a little bit slanted down, but that's okay. And I'm using the marked indexes, 48 index wheel, half unmarked, half unmarked. This time I'm using the marked ones, which is 24 indexes. So I'm ready now to glue the second ring on. Okay, this is just like the first row. Only thing is, we're using the marked indexes, so this row is offset from the first row, so these segments will fall right between the two segments on the first row. Again, very light coat of glue. Coat it all the way, it makes no difference. Very light coat. Hold it for 5 seconds. Go to the next marked index. Again, a light layer of glue. Very light. Put it on. Hold it for 5 seconds. And go to the next marked index. I'm going to just keep on doing this till I get them all on. I've got 2 rows on now. But pretty fast, pretty fast. Got the 3rd row cut. Got the 2nd row sanded flat. What I'm going to do now is start turning the inside. I'm going to turn the cap roll into the 1st ring. Don't want to turn into the 2nd ring. It'll chip. The glue won't fail, but it'll chip till it gets something over the top of it. I know, I've had many people say, you're not supposed to turn the inside first. Well, if you're turning a solid piece of wood into a bowl, it makes good sense to turn the outside first. Yes, of course. But it's not a solid piece of wood. Segmented turning. I turn the inside now as I go out. It's a heck of a lot easier than wait until you're finished trying to get all the way inside. Just right there, I mean, why not? It's a lot easier. And you know, who writes the rules anyway? So yeah, I'm going to start turning the inside a little bit. As I work my way out, I'll turn it a little bit more sanded as I go. Makes it easy, makes it easier. So I'm going to put on 3rd ring. It's going to be 8.5 inch diameter. The 4th ring will be the same diameter as the 2nd ring, be 8 inch. And the 5th and final ring will be the same diameter as the 1st ring. Then I'll put a solid ring on top. Actually, I'm going to put 2 solid rings. I'm going to put a thin one and a thicker one on top, just to match what the bottom's got, that's all. So yeah, it's going pretty fast. I'm just going to turn a little bit, add some more rings on it. I'll get back after I got all the open segment rings on. I got all the open segment rings on, 5 of them. Quick and easy, actually quicker than you would imagine, and easy. With the index wheel are perfectly spaced. Now I got to put the solid ring on top. Really only need 1 solid ring on top, but what I'm going to do is I want to mirror the bottom. The bottom, of course, got a floating bottom with a big ring for the floating bottom, thick ring, and then a thin cap ring above it. Well, I parted the cap ring when I put it on, so I got the parted off piece. I'm going to glue it on, so it'll be thin, just like the one on the bottom. Then I'll put a thicker ring over the top of it. Actually, that'll give it more strength too, because I'll have the cross-grain glue up across the joints. So the first thing I'm going to do is glue on the thin ring. got two rings on the top now. I put the thin ring on so it matches the bottom. Then I put a thicker ring on top. Gives it more strength too. I got to finish turning the inside. It's turned all the way up to the rings. After that, I'll turn the outside and then I'll put some finish on it. I'll sand it just a little bit. Can't sand it too much because of the different hardnesses of the wood. So you got to turn it pretty smooth and then sand it a little bit. This really didn't take any time at all, no more time than it would for a solid segment turning. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish turning it. I turned it, sanded it lightly. I sprayed finish on it. I used lacquer this time because it dries fast. Now I got to take it off the faceplate and turn the bottom. I glued it on the faceplate, of course, with brown paper. There we go. There we go. I've got to turn the bottom. Got to be turned off. I'm going to hold the top with cold jaws, tapered pins, hold it from the inside. Bottom I'm going to use a live center. If I put a live center up here, it'll punch a hole right through this thin floating bottom. So I do, make a piece like this. It's right in here. Put the live center right, dead center. I got a point there, dead center. And that spreads the force out so it don't break the bottom. This just fits in. So I'm going to mount it between centers. Now I'm going to finish turning the bottom. Okay, it's finished. It's signed. So, open segment. Turning it's the same as the solid segment. Finishing it's the same as the solid segment. Turning the bottom's the same as the solid segment. Only difference is making the segment rings for solid segment or gluing segments on for an open segment. And as you can see in the video, I can put open segment rings on same time that would take me to make a solid ring, but I don't have to get the tight joints between the segments, which makes it easier. So you see how I did it? You see how easy it was? And it is actually easier than a closed segment. So I don't know what I'm going to do for my next video, but hope you subscribe and hope you come back and see my next video. Thank you.